Have you ever noticed a truly baffling phenomenon about human ambition? Like if you just observe the trajectory of people who are trying to achieve something monumental.
Oh, yeah. It's actually one of the most consistent patterns out there.
Right. And whether that is, trying to completely reinvent their professional reality or maybe trying to forge a profound, really vulnerable connection after a lifetime of emotional isolation.
Or even just shifting their internal state to something more peaceful. The goal almost doesn't matter.
Exactly. And the overwhelming majority of them, they do not quit at the beginning. They don't.
No, the beginning is full of that fresh, boundless energy.
Yeah. And they don't give up when the journey is at its absolute hardest either. Like when they are just slogging through the messy middle, they keep going.
Which is fascinating, right? You'd think the hardest part would be where people drop off.
I mean, logically, yes,
Yeah.
but instead, an enormous fragment of people self-sabotage right at the absolute precipice of success.
Literally at the threshold.
Yes. It is precisely when the foot is raised, ready to cross that ultimate boundary into a new reality, that people just suddenly collapse.
It's a complete systemic freeze.
You are standing there, the path is pristine,
Ah.
your desire is absolutely pure, and the vision is so vivid you can practically feel the atmospheric pressure of it.
You can taste it. It's that
Yeah.
close.
Right. And right in that microscopic fraction of a second, an invisible, crushing weight just descends on you.
It's so heavy. And it's entirely internal.
Your mind suddenly begins to scream, you do not belong here. You lack the essence for this. You are an imposter.
The classic imposter alarm. It's deafening.
And instead of stepping forward, you freeze. Your muscles literally lock up.
Yeah. You retreat.
So, the question that we have to answer today for you, the listener, is why? Why on earth does the human mind wait until the exact moment of its own evolution to launch its most vicious attack against itself?
Well, it is arguably the most frustrating paradox of the human experience. I mean, without a doubt.
It feels like a betrayal, doesn't it, by your own brain?
It absolutely feels like a betrayal. And the reason we struggle with it so deeply is because our cultural interpretation of that exact moment is entirely backward.
Backward. How so?
We have been fundamentally conditioned to view that crushing internal resistance, that sudden cacophony of panic, as an alarm bell warning us of danger.
Right, like danger. Turn back now.
Exactly. We interpret it as a stop sign. We think it is a tragic flaw in our design, or, even worse, proof that we actually are inadequate.
That the voice is telling the objective truth.
Yes. But we need to completely reframe this premise right from the start of our extensive exploration today.
Okay, lay it on me.
What if this overwhelming, paralyzing resistance is not an enemy at all?
Wait, not an enemy. It feels incredibly hostile.
It does. But what if that exact sensation of terror is actually the single greatest, most reliable indicator that a monumental, reality-altering shift is already underway?
Okay, wait, I need to pause you right there. Because that goes against almost every survival instinct we have as humans.
I know it does. It's a massive paradigm shift.
I mean, think about it. When you touch a hot stove, your body sends a signal of pain so that you pull your hand away, right?
Biological imperative.
Yes, we are biologically wired to interpret extreme discomfort and internal panic as a signal to retreat, to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. It's designed to keep the physical vessels safe.
So, are you suggesting that in the realm of personal evolution, that biological warning system is essentially lying to us?
I'm suggesting that the system is misinterpreting the nature of the threat.
Yeah.
It's firing the right alarm for the wrong reason.
Okay, that is fascinating. So the alarm is real, but the threat isn't physical.
Right. And to understand why this happens, we have to embark on a really profound exploration of the architecture of the mind. That's our mission today.
I love that. We need to completely deconstruct the metaphysical and philosophical mechanics of this paralysis.
Because we are not just going to talk about what it feels like,
Yeah.
We are going to examine the actual underlying machinery.
We need to understand how this internal resistance functions mechanically.
Exactly. Because it is not a personal failing. I really want the listener to hear that.
It's not some inherent weakness in your character. You aren't broken.
No, you are a universal mechanical process working exactly as it was designed to work.
But to master it, you have to understand what the machine is actually trying to protect.
And that leads us to the foundational error we make, doesn't it?
It really does. The absolute root of this entire struggle begins with a fundamental misdefinition of what we are actually doubting in that moment of panic.
Yeah, we completely misidentify the target of our doubt.
Because if you are standing there frozen by that internal chatter, you naturally assume you are questioning your physical abilities.
You think it's about your resume.
Right. You think the question is, Am I smart enough to handle this new role? Do I possess the sheer physical endurance to sustain this new reality?
Or, am I charismatic enough to be loved in this profound way?
Exactly. You localize the doubt. You restrict it to the limitations of the physical vessel.
But that is a profound misunderstanding of the self,
Hmm.
like on a massive scale.
How so? Define the self in this context.
Well, true doubt is the self. The kind of existential hesitation that literally paralyzes you at the threshold of change. It is not a critique of the physical body.
Or your accumulated list of skills, right?
Right. The physical vessel is merely the material expression. It is just the dense, localized manifestation of something vastly larger.
Okay, so what are we actually doubting then, if not the physical vessel?
When you experience that terminal doubt, you are actually questioning your infinite inner potential.
Wow. Your infinite potential.
Yes, you are questioning the boundless, omnipotent creative force that dwells within every conscious being.
I have to admit, that sounds a bit detached from the reality of a panic attack.
Oh, I know it does. When you're in it, it feels very small and very physical.
Right, because when someone is hyperventilating because they're about to, say, launch an endeavor they've poured everything into, they don't feel like a boundless, omnipotent creative force.
Not at all. They feel like prey.
Yes. They feel like a very small, very fragile human being who might not be able to sustain themselves.
And it's entirely valid as an emotional experience.
So how do we bridge that gap between the metaphysical concept of infinite potential and the very grounded, terrifying reality of human limitation?
We bridge it by recognizing the dual nature of identity.
The dual nature. Okay, unpack that.
Throughout the passage of eras, human conditioning has trained us to over-identify with the avatar and completely forget the player.
Oh, I like that analogy. The avatar and the player.
Right. You have physical form, you have a name, you have a collection of memories, traumas, and preferences. That is the avatar.
The character moving through the physical world.
Exactly. But the animating force, the consciousness that is actually aware that you are having those thoughts, is fundamentally limitless.
It's the observer behind the eyes.
It is the same energetic fabric that constructs reality itself. So when you experience this profound hesitation and you direct it at your core, you are not doubting a mere mortal frame.
You are fundamentally doubting the limitless essence of reality itself.
Yes. And philosophically speaking, that is an absurdity.
Because it is a complete contradiction in terms.
Precisely. To doubt the boundless essence within is functionally equivalent to an ocean deeply and sincerely doubting its capacity to be wet.
Huh. An ocean having an identity crisis about wetness.
It defies the very nature of existence. It is a logical fallacy of cosmic proportions.
Because the ocean does not need to read a manual on how to be wet.
No, it is the very definition of wetness. Limitless potential does not need to learn how to create. It is the very fabric of creation.
Let me offer a thought experiment to really visualize the scale of that absurdity, because I think this is crucial for the listener to grasp.
Please do. Visualizing it really helps.
Imagine a grand universal architect.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
This is a consciousness that has flawlessly designed a vast constellation of galaxies.
A truly omnipotent force.
Right. It has orchestrated the orbital dance of planets, it's calculated the physics of black holes, and painted the violent, beautiful birth of nebulas.
Infinite complexity. Flawless execution.
Exactly. Now imagine that exact same grand architect sitting at a drafting table, suddenly paralyzed by a cold sweat.
Trembling.
And genuinely questioning if they possess the fundamental capability to draw a simple, tiny straight line on a piece of paper.
That captures the paradox beautifully. It really highlights how ridiculous our panic actually is when you zoom out.
Right, because the architect has already demonstrated absolute mastery over infinite complexity.
The force that grows your cells, beats your heart, and processes an endless tide of sensory data every second without your conscious input. That is a force of staggering magnitude.
It's doing miracles every millisecond.
Yet when that same force is tasked with a relatively simple localized creation like stepping into a new career or opening up to a relationship, the conscious mind suddenly declares, we don't have the capacity for this.
It feels defeated by the most basic expression of its own power.
It's completely absurd.
So, if you are standing in that moment of paralysis, recognizing this absurdity seems incredibly powerful.
It's the ultimate pattern interrupt.
If you can realize that your core is not a fragile collection of human neuroses, but rather the architect of the experience itself, the voice of hesitation loses its ultimate authority.
It is no longer an objective truth teller. It's just a confused signal.
It becomes a recognizable pattern rather than an absolute
Ah,
verdict. You stop taking the fear so seriously.
exactly. But to truly dismantle this pattern, recognizing the infinite nature of the self is only the first step.
Right, because there's also the world we are interacting with.
Yes, we also have to fundamentally redefine the nature of the environment in which the self is operating.
Yeah.
We have to look at reality itself.
And how we transition from one reality to another, because most of us operate under the assumption that reality is a fixed physical location.
We view it geographically.
Yeah. We think of our current life as a room, and the life we want as a different room down the hall.
A very heavy room that you have to walk to.
Right. And to get there, we have to physically drag ourselves, our circumstances, and our environment down that hallway. We view change as a literal, grueling physical migration.
Which is an illusion born entirely of our sensory limitations. The physical senses lie to us about how solid things are.
So what is the truth about our realities?
The realities we inhabit are not static, immovable environments. They are, at a fundamental level, materialized frequencies.
Materialized frequencies, like energetic signatures.
Precisely. Think of your current reality as an energetic signature. Whether you are seeking to elevate your professional path to an entirely new echelon or cultivate perfectly harmonious relationships.
Or even just achieve a state of unshakable inner tranquility.
Yes, that desired destination is not a place on a map. It is simply a new state of consciousness. It is a distinct, measurable, energetic signature.
So if reality is materialized frequency, then transitioning from where you are to where you want to be doesn't require travel in the way we traditionally understand it.
It requires no physical movement whatsoever. It requires a profound internal realignment.
Which changes everything about how we pursue goals.
It does. There's a fascinating extrapolation here regarding the nature of existence. Consider the idea that an endless tide of potential realities exists concurrently.
Concurrently, like all at once.
All layered over one another, happening right now in the eternal present.
So the reality where I am wildly successful already exists.
It exists right alongside the reality where you are struggling. They are just vibrating at different pitches.
Wow. So transitioning into the reality where you possess that bountiful harvest of resources is merely a matter of shifting your internal resonance to match it.
Exactly. You tune yourself to the reality you want to experience.
Let me try to find a metaphor for this because it is a massive, massive concept.
It's counterintuitive to everything we're taught.
We often hear people use the analogy of tuning a radio dial to a new station, but I think that misses the tactile, physical reality of what we experience.
I agree. It feels a bit too detached.
Let's think about it in terms of acoustic resonance.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Imagine you are standing in a massive, cavernous room filled with an absolute vast constellation of stringed instruments. Cellos, violins, grand pianos.
A giant orchestra room.
Right. And they're all just sitting there, completely silent.
Waiting.
Now, if you take a tuning fork that is calibrated to a very specific frequency, let's say a perfect crystal clear note, and you strike it, you don't have to walk over and manually play the other instruments.
Yeah, physics does the work for you.
Exactly. The invisible sound waves travel through the room, and only the strings on the other instruments that are perfectly tuned to that exact same note will spontaneously begin to vibrate and sing back to you.
Sympathetic resonance. It's a
Yeah.
real phenomenon.
And the rest of the instruments, they remain entirely dormant. They don't even register the sound.
That is an exceptionally precise analogy for how reality generation functions.
Because you don't have to force the cello to play. You don't have to build the strings from scratch.
The potential for the music is already there in the room.
You simply have to become the tuning fork that holds the frequency of the reality you want to experience.
Yes. And when you strike that internal pitch and hold it, the corresponding circumstances, people, and opportunities in the physical world around you naturally begin to vibrate in harmony with you.
And what happens to the old reality, the instruments that were tuned to a lower frequency?
They don't disappear. They aren't destroyed. You simply stop experiencing them.
Because they stop vibrating in your presence. You are no longer supplying the matching resonance.
You are withdrawing your energetic participation from the old state and placing it entirely into the new state.
That makes so much sense, but and I have to challenge this for the sake of everyone listening.
Please.
Because if it is truly just a matter of changing the pitch, if I just need to strike the right internal note, why does it feel like a titanic, agonizing struggle?
Oh, yes. The resistance.
Right. If I decide today that I want to hold the frequency of absolute abundance and inner peace, why is it that by the middle of the day, I am completely consumed by anxiety and reacting to everything with frustration?
It's the snapback effect.
It feels like the physical world is stubbornly fighting my attempt to change the frequency. It feels like the old instruments are shouting at me.
That is the vital question. Why does it resist? And the answer leads us to a highly uncomfortable yet deeply illuminating truth about human psychology and metaphysics.
I am ready. Uncomfortable is where the growth happens.
The current paradigm, your old reality, the lower frequencies you're trying to leave behind, is not a passive environment.
It's not just an empty room.
It's not an empty room that doesn't care whether you stay or leave.
This is the concept that I found the most unsettling when we were outlining this discussion.
It shakes a lot of people up.
The idea that our habits aren't just, passive patterns.
No, they are survival mechanisms.
Yeah.
Your current state of existence is a massive accumulation.
An accumulation of what, exactly?
It's composed of the passage of past eras, your normalized reactions to stress, your deeply ingrained expectations of disappointment.
All the neurochemical pathways of my old familiar emotional rhythms.
Exactly. And all of that together does not just form a passive backdrop. Over time, that dense web of habituation begins to operate as an autonomous, living, energetic entity.
You were saying my old identity is a living entity, like not as a poetic metaphor, but as a functional system.
Yes. From a purely psychological standpoint, we can look at neuroplasticity. You know the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Right.
Over a vast duration of time, those neural pathways become robust, highly efficient superhighways. They become a self-sustaining ecosystem within your brain.
And ecosystems want to survive.
Like any living organism or ecosystem, this entity possesses one overwhelming primary directive: survival. It wants to continue existing.
Wants to maintain homeostasis.
And its survival depends entirely on a constant, reliable food source.
Okay, and its food source is my attention.
It is your continuous feeding of emotional and psychological energy.
Wow.
It feeds on your anxiety.
Yeah.
It feeds on your predictable reactions to the same old triggers. It feeds on your validation of its rules.
So when I get stressed about the same old things, I'm feeding the entity.
We're giving it a banquet. Now, when you suddenly decide to elevate your frequency, when you strike that new tuning fork and try to hold a higher note, what happens?
I abruptly stop reacting in the old ways. I stop worrying about the things it wants me to worry about.
And by doing that, you begin to withdraw nourishment from this old paradigm. You are effectively starving it.
So my tendency to self-sabotage, my imposter syndrome, my old fears, they actually possess a survival instinct. They are literally fighting for their life.
They behave exactly as if they do. Picture this old paradigm as a highly intelligent shadow companion that has walked beside you for a vast duration of time.
A shadow companion, that's a haunting image, but so accurate.
Since the dawn of your earliest memories, this shadow has been observing you. It knows every single vulnerability you possess.
It knows all my buttons.
It knows precisely which memories to flash across your mind to flood your system with doubt. It knows how to use your own logic against you.
Oh, that's the worst part, when it uses my own intellect to defeat me. Let's be realistic, it says.
Yes. It will disguise its fear as being realistic or being practical. And it does all of this because it thrives entirely on the familiar, predictable comfort of your stagnation.
It wants me to stay exactly where I am in this tiny restricted box because that is the only climate it knows how to breathe in.
Exactly.
If I evolve, the atmosphere changes and the shadow companion suffocates.
Precisely. And this framing, I think, creates a monumental shift in perspective.
Because it separates me from the fear.
It allows you to finally separate your true identity from the outdated psychological structures you currently occupy. You are not your resistance.
The resistance is just the old architecture collapsing.
And the shadow companion is screaming because its house is coming down.
So let's take this back to the person we talked about at the very beginning, the one standing on the precipice.
Right.
That invisible crushing weight descends, the panic sets in. Under this new framework, that panic isn't a sign that I am failing. It isn't a sign that I am not ready.
It is the exact opposite. That paralyzing internal chatter is a calculated defense mechanism.
It's tactical.
It is the tactical deployment of fear by the old energetic entity. And here is the absolute key to all of this. This defense mechanism is only deployed when the entity perceives a terminal threat.
A terminal threat, meaning it actually believes it is going to die.
It knows it is going to die if you take that next step. That is the mechanics of the threat response.
Because if I wasn't really changing, it wouldn't care.
Exactly. This deafening voice of self-doubt does not bother you when you are sitting on the couch, repeating the same safe behaviors you performed yesterday.
It stays completely quiet when I'm compliant.
Because it is being fed.
Mm.
Therefore, the sudden presence of fierce, overwhelming internal resistance is actually a confession.
A confession of a portal.
An absolute confirmation that true, permanent change is imminent. You have reached the boundary line.
That is profound.
The old paradigm deploys its maximum hesitation specifically because its extinction is at hand.
It's throwing everything it has at me.
Every doubt, every physiological symptom of panic because it knows you have found the exit.
Like an extinction burst in psychology.
Exactly like that. Right before a conditioned behavior is finally extinguished, it temporarily spikes in intensity and frequency. It throws a massive tantrum.
So if the overwhelming majority of people understood this fundamental mechanic, they would never retreat when they feel that terminal doubt.
Never. They would press forward with unprecedented velocity.
That completely inverts the narrative of human struggle. Look at the tragic irony of how we typically live our lives.
It is tragic, honestly.
We treat this intense internal alarm bell as a giant neon stop sign. We feel the panic, the tight chest, the spinning thoughts, and we say, whoa, clearly I'm out of bounds.
The universe is telling me I've gone too far.
Right. I need to turn back. When in reality, that alarm bell is the finish line ribbon.
It really is.
It is the universe signaling that you have arrived at the exact boundary of your old self. You are literally one step away from the new reality.
And by welcoming this resistance, by recognizing it not as an enemy, but as a sign of impending victory, we completely strip it of its power.
You change the entire dynamic of the interaction.
You transition from being a victim in a battle to being an empowered observer of a mechanical process.
But observation isn't entirely neutral, is it?
No, it is not.
Because how we look at that resistance changes what the resistance actually does to us in physical reality.
This is where we must enter the concept of the perception-projection loop.
The perception-projection loop. Okay, walk us through that.
How one perceives this internal resistance dictates exactly how it manifests in the physical world.
Meaning my thoughts shape its physical form.
Yes. If you view this doubt as a terrible, tragic, and insurmountable force, your perception acts as a projector.
It beams out a signal.
It beams a frequency that literally solidifies the doubt into a giant, unyielding obstacle.
It's like we are the ones giving the monster its teeth.
We are entirely responsible for the teeth?
The monster is just a shadow on the wall, but our belief that it is dangerous actually gives it physical form.
In a universe composed of energetic opposites, all concepts have dual natures. Hot implies cold. Up implies down.
Right.
Therefore, the concept of a barrier only exists if you empower it with your belief. Truth, in this metaphysical framework, is simply what the deepest layers of the mind accept as reality.
Okay, that is a very heavy philosophical statement. Truth is simply what the deepest layers of the mind accept.
It is heavy.
Let's linger on that for a second, because we are so attached to the idea of objective reality.
Oh, we cling to it.
We really do. We think reality is something happening to us.
It requires a massive unlearning of our social conditioning.
Yeah.
We are taught that the world is hard, objective, and unyielding, and we are just soft creatures bouncing off the walls of it.
Just victims of circumstance.
But in the realm of human experience, there are no objective, unyielding truths.
None. I mean, not even the laws of physics.
Well, we're speaking specifically about the reality of human experience, limitation, and potential.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
In the realm of potential.
Right. In that realm, there are only ideas that have been solidified into reality through deep subconscious acceptance.
So let's apply this to the feeling of paralysis at the precipice.
Let's do it.
If you accept the internal resistance as an agonizing, objective barrier that proves you are unworthy,
You will seamlessly transition into a reality where that is objectively true.
you'll fail.
The barrier will hold. But it will hold not because the barrier was inherently strong, but because you provided the structural integrity for it to exist through your perception.
I want to find a really solid analogy for this perception projection loop, because it is crucial that this clicks for people.
Go ahead.
Think about the science of cymatics.
Oh, with the sand and the sound frequencies, yes.
Exactly, where they place grains of sand on a flat metal plate and then run different sound frequencies through the plate.
Right.
When the frequency is chaotic, the sand just scatters randomly. It's a mess.
A total mess.
But when they play a pure, specific, resonant frequency, The sand magically organizes itself into incredibly complex, beautiful geometric patterns.
It's mesmerizing to watch.
It really is. Now, the sand represents the physical events, the people, the barriers, and the opportunities in our reality.
And the observer is the frequency generator.
Exactly. If you don't like the pattern the sand is making, like if you are facing a massive barrier in your life, you cannot fix it by taking your hands and trying to physically push the grains of sand into a new shape.
You just make a bigger mess.
You'll ruin whatever pattern was there. The sand has no capacity to organize itself. The physical world has no capacity for initiation.
It can only reflect the frequency being played beneath it.
The reality can only mirror the frequency. It is an acoustic feedback loop.
So if you perceive the doubt as an invincible enemy,
Your frequency is one of fear, and the sand arranges itself into the shape of a brick wall. The reality reflects an enemy.
but if you perceive the exact same feeling of doubt as the glorious, necessary death rattle of your old limitations,
Your frequency is one of triumph and anticipation, and the sand instantly rearranges itself into an open door.
the external world is completely beholden to the internal pitch.
Which brings us to the most practical yet difficult part of this equation.
Right, the application.
If I need to change the pitch, I need to know how to stop generating the frequency of fear. I need to know how to stop identifying with these negative thoughts when they are screaming at me.
To do that, we must understand the river of consciousness and the profound illusion of identity.
The illusion of identity. Explain the mechanics of that.
The human mind does not actually generate thoughts in the way we typically assume.
We think we make them up.
We tend to believe that our brain is like a factory, manufacturing every thought from scratch, and therefore every thought that pops into our head is ours and represents our true self.
Like it's a reflection of my character.
Exactly. But it is much more accurate to view the mind as a receiver. It acts as an antenna for an infinite stream of thoughts flowing across a vast mental plane.
So thoughts are just passing through.
They pass through the receiver constantly. The fatal error we make, the absolute root of nearly all psychological suffering and self-sabotage, is identifying with these fleeting thoughts.
Rather than identifying as the eternal space that is observing them.
Yes. We claim ownership of every random piece of debris that floats through the receiver.
We see a thought that says, "You are a fraud," and instead of saying, the receiver picked up a signal of insecurity, we say, "I am a fraud."
Exactly. No thought is objectively real or powerful, except the solitary spark that you consciously choose to hold on to, bring into your core, and feed with your emotional energy.
I want to visualize this separation between the observer and the thoughts.
Visuals are great for this.
Imagine standing in the absolute center of a grand, bustling, metropolitan train terminal, like Grand Central Station.
Okay, a massive, busy space.
There are hundreds of trains arriving and departing every single minute. These trains represent the infinite stream of thoughts passing through your mind.
Just constantly coming and going.
Right. Some trains are heading toward destinations of joy. Some are heading toward mundane tasks.
Like doing the laundry.
Exactly. And some, like the voice of panic at the precipice, are express trains heading straight toward despair and failure.
The doors open and the conductor yells, "All aboard for imposter syndrome."
A very familiar train for many.
Very familiar.
But here's the critical distinction. You are the architecture of the station itself. You are the grand, vaulted ceiling.
You are the space.
You are the space in which the trains arrive and depart. The catastrophic mistake we make is believing that just because a train pulled into the station, we are obligated to board it.
We feel compelled to get on.
We see the anxiety train arrive, the doors open, and we just mindlessly step onto it, take a seat, and let it carry us miles away into a reality of panic.
When we could just stay put.
We forget that we have the power to simply stand on the platform, watch the doors open, watch them close, and let the train leave without us.
The architecture of the station is never diminished by the departure of a train.
It remains perfectly intact.
When you realize you are the space in which the thoughts happen, you develop a practical framework for rejection. You realize you do not have to board every train.
A framework for rejection? How does that practically work in the heat of the moment, when the panic is loud?
It is remarkably simple, yet it requires supreme vigilance. Imagine you are seated at a magnificent banquet.
Aw.
The server brings over a covered dish, lifts the lid, and reveals a plate of completely rotten, spoiled, toxic nourishment.
Gross.
What do? You wouldn't stand up and start screaming at the food.
No?
You wouldn't write a massive, sprawling essay arguing with the food about why it shouldn't be spoiled. You wouldn't negotiate with it.
I would just say no thank you and push the plate away.
Precisely. You would simply decline it and move your attention elsewhere. You possess the exact same inherent spiritual and mental capability to simply say no to a toxic thought without engaging in a battle with it.
But our cultural instinct is to battle.
We love a fight.
We do. When a negative thought comes up, like, you aren't qualified for this, we immediately start fighting it. We pull out our mental resumes, we start arguing with the thought, trying to prove it wrong.
Look at my credentials.
Right. Look at my experience.
And by arguing with the thought, you are boarding the train. You are validating its premise.
Because I'm treating it like a legitimate threat.
You are treating the toxic food as a legitimate authority that requires a defense. When you defend yourself against a thought, you are energetically acknowledging that the thought has power over you.
So what's the alternative?
When you simply decline it, when you recognize it as spoiled nourishment or a passing train, you starve it of the emotional energy it needs to solidify into your physical reality.
You let it pass through the receiver and fade back into the ether.
Exactly.
So we have this intense defense mechanism screaming at us, and we are learning to decline it by standing on the platform. But I have to ask about the sheer physical force of the hesitation itself.
Very somatic.
It is. Because when I am standing on that precipice, the feeling of I can't do this isn't a quiet whisper. It isn't just a train sitting quietly at the station.
No, it's a physical storm.
It is a massive, overwhelming wave of energetic pressure in my chest.
That brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of this entire dynamic.
Yeah.
The hidden power of misdirected belief.
Misdirected belief. Explain what you mean by that.
We culturally view hesitation, fear, or self-doubt as a lack of belief.
Yeah, we say, I just need to believe in myself more.
When someone is frozen at the threshold, they inevitably say, I just don't believe in myself. But if we look at the mechanics of consciousness, that is entirely incorrect.
Really?
The sensation of profound hesitation is not the absence of belief. It is a presence of immense, intense belief directed in direct opposition to your desired goal.
Wait, let me absorb that. It's not a lack of belief.
No. Think about the physical symptoms of panic.
The racing heart, the
Yeah.
sweat.
To be absolutely paralyzed by the idea of failure. To feel it so vividly in your body that your palms sweat and your heart races. To be so convinced of your impending doom that you cannot take a step forward.
That requires imagination.
That requires a magnificent magnitude of conviction. It requires an incredibly powerful imagination. You are believing in your failure with absolute unwavering mastery.
That is a completely paradigm-shattering way to look at it. I'm not failing at manifestation. I am manifesting my own paralysis with perfect, flawless execution.
You are an absolute expert at it. The sheer energy of belief is already present and fully active within you.
The engine is roaring.
It's producing massive amounts of torque. Therefore, the task of achieving your desired reality is not about generating new energy from a void. You do not need to go to a seminar to learn how to believe.
Because I already know how to believe with terrifying intensity. I do it every time I have a panic attack.
Exactly. You simply need to pivot the immense power of that existing conviction toward the desired outcome. You need to repurpose the engine.
So if someone is listening to this, and they are in the exact moment the panic hits, they are standing there, heart racing, convinced they are going to fail, what does this realization do for them?
It means that the panic itself is undeniable proof of their power. Recognizing this misdirected power is a moment of immense empowerment.
So instead of despairing,
When you feel that intense fear, you can pause and say, look at the magnitude of my belief. Look at how powerfully I can shape my internal state. Look at how vividly I can imagine a future scenario.
the engine is already running perfectly. The fuel lines are clear. The combustion is flawless.
We simply need to turn the steering wheel.
We just have to point the car in the other direction. We have to take that exact same intensity of imagination and apply it to the scenario where we succeed.
Exactly.
But how do we actually turn the wheel? Because it's one thing to understand this intellectually, but when your nervous system is flooded with anxiety, turning the wheel feels physically impossible. The steering wheel feels locked.
To unlock the wheel, we must master the alchemy of emotion and inner peace.
Emotion as alchemy. Let's break down the mechanics of that.
Emotion operates quite literally as energy in motion. It is the fundamental language of reality generation.
Not our thoughts.
Your logical thoughts define the destination, they draw the map, but your emotions are the vehicle that actually takes you there. The frequency of your emotion is the pitch of the tuning fork.
So if I'm feeling fear, I'm vibrating fear.
Now, when the doubt arises, how do most people react? They experience frustration, annoyance, or despair.
Or anger at themselves for being afraid.
And experiencing those low-frequency emotions acts as an energetic glue.
Glue! That's a very visceral word for it.
It permanently adheres you to the old paradigm. If you feel doubt, and then you get angry at yourself because you feel doubt, and then you despair over your anger,
I'm just piling it on.
you have created a thick, impenetrable layer of energetic glue that locks you into the frequency of failure. You are vibrating at the exact pitch of the shadow companion.
So what breaks the glue?
Conversely, accessing a state of profound inner peace and relaxation is the absolute mandatory prerequisite for receiving a new reality.
I really want to challenge this, or at least explore why this is so difficult for us to accept.
Because it's the opposite of what we're told.
It runs entirely counter to modern culture. We are universally taught to fight for what we want. We are taught to grind, to hustle, to aggressively battle our resistance.
The whole conquer your demons narrative.
Yes, we idolize the image of the warrior conquering their demons through sheer bloody willpower. We think that if we aren't sweating and bleeding, we aren't earning it.
It is a highly romanticized and ultimately highly inefficient way of living. And biologically and metaphysically, it is counterproductive.
It doesn't work.
The mechanics of reality demand the exact opposite. They demand relaxation. They demand ease.
But why? Why does peace work better than fighting? What is the actual mechanism at play here?
Because of how the deepest layers of the mind function. The subconscious mind, the foundational architecture where your perception is solidified into physical reality, can only be accessed when the turbulent mental waves are completely calmed.
Like stilling a pond so you can see the bottom.
Exactly. Think about brainwave states. When you are fighting, grinding, and panicking, you are in a high-alert brainwave state.
Everything is hypervigilant.
Your mind is erratic, defensive, and highly restricted. It is scanning for threats. You cannot rewrite the foundational script of your reality while the stage is on fire.
You have to put the fire out first. You have to lower the mental temperature.
You have to drop down into relaxed states. In a state of profound tranquility, the resistance of the conscious mind drops and something magical happens.
What happens?
The subconscious mind loses its ability to distinguish between a vividly imagined triumph and a physical, historical occurrence.
That is a well-documented psychological phenomenon, isn't it? The brain literally doesn't know the difference between a memory of something that actually happened and a vivid visualization of something you want to happen.
The exact same neural pathways light up.
That's incredible.
Precisely. But this mechanism only works in a state of peace. If you are anxious, the brain knows the visualization is fake. It rejects it.
So how do we apply this at the precipice? When the crushing resistance arises, your first cultural instinct will be to fight it. You will want to argue with the shadow companion.
Do not fight it.
Drop the sword.
Drop the sword completely. Relax your physical body. Breathe into the space. Recognize the screaming voice of doubt, not as an authority, but as the desperate, thrashing death rattle of the old self.
It's just throwing a tantrum.
It is throwing a tantrum because it knows it is being replaced. Let it tantrum. You stand on the platform of the terminal and you just watch it scream.
And while I'm watching it,
As you relax into that observation, gently and persistently begin to imagine the reality of the new elevation, as if it is already an accomplished historical fact.
you don't force it. You gently loop that triumphant inner vision to cultivate unshakable certainty. You bathe in the feeling of the finish line.
You allow the new frequency to become the dominant resonance in the room. And as you strike that new tuning fork, the old reality simply stops vibrating.
It loses its structural integrity and the door opens.
Yes.
This has been an absolutely phenomenal exploration of the mechanics of human potential. Let me take a moment to summarize the overarching narrative we've traversed today, because we've covered a vast and profound landscape.
We really have.
We began with the image of a person standing at the very edge of their evolution, paralyzed by an internal storm of doubt, feeling wholly inadequate for the journey ahead. We naturally thought that storm was a warning.
A sign of inherent limitation.
Right. But through this massive analysis, we've seen that the storm is not a barrier keeping you out. The storm is literally the old world falling away as you step into your boundless potential.
The resistance is the absolute proof of the portal.
We've learned that we are not the trains of thought passing through the station. We are the grand architecture observing them.
Yes.
We've realized that our paralyzing fear is just misdirected belief, proving that we already possess the infinite power to shape our lives.
The engine is already running.
The capacity of the human spirit to mold existence is truly infinite once it remembers its true position as the observer, the tuning fork, and the grand architect.
It is a radical reclamation of authority over one's own existence. The complete transition from victim to creator.
Such a powerful shift.
And as we conclude this journey, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering question to explore in the quiet moments of your own life.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have established that the crushing resistance you feel is not an enemy, but simply the old, familiar version of you grieving its own necessary departure.
Right.
So, what would happen if, instead of fighting that old self, instead of hating your anxiety and your fear, you simply thanked it for its long service, recognized that it was only trying to keep you safe, and gently let it go?
A profoundly beautiful thought to carry with us as we step off that precipice. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Until next time.